Hey, how y'all doing? This is Hunt 919 with another segment. This is about talking about how I feel about Coach Prime's coaching staff after the loss to Oregon State. I like to jump right into the gear. You all know I love the gear, so they had the white and black and gold with the black helmets. Coach Prime, of course, matched it with the black headphones and the white hoodie with the black hat and the black headsets. But I will like to say something real quick because I'm kind of weird with certain things. I'm trying to see if I'm the only one who's thinking this, but am I the only one who thinks that Colorado's their field looks kind of dry and like not really colorful, more like a black and white look. When you see the fields on the as far as watching through the television, because most of the colleges that you watch is all lit up, everything's bright, everything's colorful. But when I watch Colorado's games, it's always like a damp, dry, black to me for some reason. Maybe that's just me. But let's get on to the game. Let's start with the offense, and the offensive coordinator was Sean Lewis. Of course, he was replaced by Pat Shermer. Pat Shermer, if you don't know anything about him, was a head coach in the NFL for some years with the Browns and the Giants. Wasn't very successful there, but he was in the pros. He basically tried to do, from me watching it, what Coach Lewis tried to do as far as trying to get Dylan Edwards the ball. But it was done with minimal damage and minimal production. He tried to swing it out to him a couple of times. He tried to run him up the middle a couple of times, and nothing really was able to work and get him going. And I kind of feel for that kid. And if you watch Dylan, he was agitated the whole game. If you watch his body language, he was also agitated with Shedeur because Shedeur kept missing him on very short open passes, especially when Shedeur would scramble on a couple of occasions. Dylan was right there in front of him, and he just would hold the ball or run around. And Shedeur does have a terrible habit of holding that ball, and I am starting to think it's for stats because most quarterbacks not most, all quarterbacks are taught throw the ball away. Just make it simple. Shedeur will not throw the ball away. He'll take a sack. Behind the line of scrimmage before he'll throw it away. And that shows when he tried to rush. I think he was negative 37 rushing the ball. So just be careful and watch Dylan this summer. I don't want to say everybody's going to hit the transfer portal, but Dylan does not look happy to me. Just remember I said that. He does not look happy to me. This is a kid they flipped from Notre Dame, then you bring him to Colorado and you put him in a stacked running back room, and he's not getting the production. He's not even at 300 yards rushing for the season, and that's terrible. So let's move on. For the first time in a while, again, the offense did not do enough to win the game. Normally, the offense puts up points, but of course, they've been struggling. They're dealing with the obvious blocking issues we all know about. They can't really run the ball. But the new issue for me is that Shedeur's really hurt. The kid can barely, he's limping. He can't even fall and get up without, look like he's grimacing, and he's in pain the whole game. And that's why his passing is not accurate. Everybody's talking about the pass game wasn't effective this game. The kid is clearly hurt, and I wish they would sit him down at least for a game. I may cover that in another segment. So they didn't have any real success again running the ball. They ran 18 times for 31 yards as a group, which is terrible. And Shedeur, like I said, had a negative 37 yards rushing. The offense went for 24 for 39 for 245 yards and 2 touchdowns, 2 late touchdowns for the most part. So it was a terrible game for the offense. Again, there's not too much to keep going into and talking about. As far as the offensive line, like I always say, this is what they have for now. You just got to learn to help them. What I said last week, that they should just don't even worry about passing the ball anymore to the tight ends. Use them to block. Use the the running backs to block. And I know that I'm not off too much, because if you watch this game, the announcers all said the same thing I said. They just used the correct terminology. They kept saying, we do not understand why Colorado is not leaving the tight ends back to help block those open ends, and those open ends are those edge rushers. They're not helping the edge rushers coming around those corners. We all can see they're struggling, backpedaling and blocking, but nobody's doing anything to help them. And I mentioned that last week. And the announcers mentioned the same thing, and I'm surprised that the coordinator didn't do anything. He's been in the pros. He's obviously been in college, and those edge rushers need to be slowed down. But Nothing was done about it, and we all saw what happened. Let's move on to the next group, the running backs. Coach Gary Harrell. Another room. If you followed me, I'm not very happy with that room. I feel bad for those kids. You stack all those kids in that room, all those productive running backs from the different places they've come from. They were all highly rated, all productive. Then you get all these kids to that running backs room, and you basically just took a year away from their careers. And I just think that's terrible. But there's not really too much to be said about this. There was no running game again for the most part. The running backs, they ran 18 times, which is actually 5 more than last week, for 31 yards as a group, which is terrible. And as I said before, Shedeur had 37 negative yards because he holds onto the ball. Nobody got more than 5 carries, which is terrible. I don't know how running backs are supposed to get into a rhythm if they can't run the ball. It's just like trying to get a guy who shoots the ball in basketball. You keep pulling him after he takes 2 shots. He'll never get into a rhythm. He'll never produce for you, and he'll always be unhappy. Savion Wilkerson led in rushes with 17 yards off of 4 carries, which is terrible. So really no need to keep talking about this room. We know that they don't use the running backs, and then the excuse we're given is they can't block. The offensive line can't block for them, et cetera, et cetera. Regardless, you wasted a year out of those guys' careers. So let's go to the wide receivers. Wide receivers under Coach Brett. The receiving team went for 245 yards. Travis and Hankerson caught the only 2 touchdowns. Travis led with 98 yards. And if y'all know how I feel about Travis being on the wide receiving team, it makes me angry. Yes, he's good. We all know that he's an athlete, but I think he hurts them more than helps them. Because once you get Travis involved, it becomes a 2-man team. It becomes Xavier and it becomes Travis, and the rest of the receiving core don't really receive any attention. It is what it is. I just think he negatively affects them, but at the same time, I understand that Coach Prime has to do that because I'm sure that's how he got him to come to Jackson State. He had to promise him something. If he couldn't give him money, he had to tell him, listen, you can play both sides of the balls. I won't hold you back. And I think it hurts the receiving core. Jimmy Horn doesn't really get any passes once Travis gets involved, and it takes away from everybody else. It just does. So Travis led with 98 yards. He, of course, I just said he had a touchdown. And there was another issue that I've been noticing, and the announcers finally said it. The announcers said themselves, they said Shedeur is missing open receivers because he's trying to get the ball to Travis. And I've been saying that for weeks, and it's good to hear somebody on that level say something that I've been seeing. And I just hate that it's been done that way. But he goes out of his way to get the ball to Travis, and as I've been saying, the rest of the receivers suffer, and those receivers are just as good. They just don't get the same opportunity. So 9 different receivers did catch passes, though, to Shedeur's credit, even though they didn't get a lot of attempts or a lot of catches. And again, Shedeur is holding the ball too long. Let's move on to the tight ends under Coach Tim Brewster. I don't like to use the word demote because, as Coach Prime said, he wasn't demoted, but there's no need to really talk about them a lot. The coach wasn't even in headphones on the sidelines, so the tight ends didn't really receive any passing, and I'm being told that Michael is getting in trouble because he's not blocking too well. So really won't go too deep into them. They started out the year great. Now it seems like they're in trouble. The offensive line coach. We all know that they're not blocking well. And we know that they're not run blocking well. So I really don't like to get too deep into them. There's not much more that can be said about them at this point. They are struggling. We know that. Shedeur was sacked 5 times. I think last week he was sacked 8 times. And they're struggling to protect them for different reasons. I've already suggested some things as far as the tight end staying in and protecting him, but that's not being done. And then when the running backs are in there, especially when Dylan's in there, they're just running right through him. So they need some big backs, and they need tight end help as no other way to get around it. We'll go to the defensive tackles, which Coach Sal, the defensive ends Coach Nick Williams, and the linebackers Coach Hart. Again, they kept the opposing team below the national average of 30 points, allowing only 26 points. There was the only thing that really crushed them, which wasn't their fault, the offense put them in a bad situation, was the 2 to 3 plays that were made right before the halftime. Right when the offense gave the ball up near that goal line and punted it to one of the top punt returners in the nation. Of course, he gave a good punt return on the short field, and then it took 2 or 3 passes, and Oregon State was able to score. And I felt bad for the defense because the defense had been, working their butts off to get the offense in a situation where they could score, but they ended up giving up that touchdown. And to me, the game was over after that for the most part. Even though the score got close at the end, let's be honest, Oregon State was like 2 possessions ahead of Colorado all night long. But they did produce 4 sacks. I think it was 3 sacks they had last week, and a couple of fumbles. So they played well again. I have no gripes with them. I didn't see a lot of crossing placement thrown against them again. They didn't give up too many deep balls. They played solid. They played good enough to win the game, which is all you can ask from them. The cornerbacks Coach Kevin Mathis. Might as well say Kevin Mathis slide Coach Prime. To be honest with you, I still don't understand the situation with Cormani. I did read that he got into the game. I had to read it because I watched the whole game. I didn't see him, and I watched every second of the game, and I watched it on television and I was watching it on YouTube, and I didn't see him, but I read that he got into the game. I just feel for him because he must be doing something terrible behind the scenes that we don't know about. But the cornerbacks look good. They forced 4 turnovers. I think it was 2 fumble recoveries, and then one of the fumble recoveries was for a touchdown on the two-point conversion. But I will say this: a lot of you all talk about the unfair call against Shiloh last week, and you look at it in slow motion. He did go helmet to helmet, even though it was not intentional. He did an intentional head-to-head hit this game. I don't know if you all saw it. It was on the opposing team sidelines, and he went in with his shoulder, and he went helmet to helmet with the guy. And another thing he didn't do, he didn't wrap the guy up. And if the guy didn't step out of bounds, he would have kept running. That's the only thing about Shiloh. He tries to deliver the hits, but when you're leading with your shoulder and your head, and I said that last week, you have there's a small box where you will hit the other guy's helmet, and it will look vicious. I don't understand why he just wants hit a guy hard at his waist level and just take him down and wrap him up. But he hadn't been doing it now. He's a senior. He's not going to start now. So you got to look out for him. He may get some more illegal hits and some more costly penalties if he's not careful. The special teams coordinator, Coach Trevor, they did a pretty good job for the most part. Mata didn't miss again, and this time there was no blocks, no kicks close to getting blocked. Because if you watch the the kicking team, a lot of times the opposing team was close to blocking their field goals for some reason. They're just not a good blocking team right now. It's just facts. That's what it is, and that's something that they're going to have to keep working on until they get it. But overall, it was terrible execution for the most part, so on the offensive side of the ball, and I think that's because Shadour's hurt. They are 4-5, which is positive because they can still make a bowl game. They can win the next game, be 5-5, and try to find one way to win one game. And we need to get Shadour healthy. So overall, it's still not a terrible season. It just looks bad, but record-wise, they are about where I thought they would be. And I think, and I'm hoping they get better. If they can get Shadour healthy, I think they can get one of these games. I really do. And if they can get one, let's pray they can get 2. So this has been Hunt 919 Truth Sports. Ride with me.